Bringing us into the top 30 is the O-Ranger Robo. This is a fantastically simple design. I love how each individual Zord's colors are present on them, but giving everything else this blue and or gold makes it flow together so beautifully. Even though the helmet is largely red, I still think it feels very connected to the rest of the robot, and I think it makes an improvement over others that had that similar problem. The design is nice and simple, but just because of how weird the motifs are, they kind of feel weird. I don't know, like there's a bull, but then there's also a sphinx on the chest. It's a little weird, kind of like the design of it, but I think the coloration is really cool, and the design is still pretty cool, I guess, so. I do not care about any of the official designations this Megazord has. I'm calling him Stacky Boy because that's the whole basis of the design. So because of that, it's a little off-putting for me. Like, the colors are so jarring. The eyes from the Go Onger cars feel very jarring because it looks like the Megazord is looking at me from its chest, stomach, crotch, and the head, I guess. And I don't like that at all. It's a little creepy, but everything else is cool. I do really like the stylized engine head, and as I mentioned, it's just these weird stacks of colors, which is kind of strange, but it's also kind of unique, and I do really like that. So 28 and 27, I'm going to be talking about them together because it's Lupin Kaiser and Pato Kaiser. I feel it's only right that I have to talk about these two robots together because they are basically the same robot. Lupin Kaiser is kind of frustrating for me. If you remove its arms, it has the basis for such a fantastic design. The black and red color scheme is awesome. The dial top hat is hilarious, but it does have the great subtle detail of the Lupin Ranger mask. But then you add the arms and it all just kind of falls apart. To me, they feel really clunky, too big, and the colors stand out so much in a bad way. There are some cool details with them, but I just think in general, they kind of make everything feel disjointed. That's why I think Pato Kaiser is better. It just feels so much more unified as a mecha because its individual components primarily use black and white, with the red and other colors being a highlight. I do think the red, green, and pink are a strange color combo, but they don't feel as strange because they're not the primary colors here. They're just the secondary colors, and it makes everything just look a lot better. The proportions of the Sun Vulcan Robo are really weird. It's like really lanky and long, but it fits with the great blocky yet slick aesthetic. The sword and shield are also really cool. Are they considered part of the Megazord? I don't really know. The picture I had to look at had the sword and shield and it looked cool. And they contrast very well with this complex head design. It's got this weird vent mouth plate as opposed to a normal panel or mouth. I don't know what it is, but it looks really cool, and I think it sets this robot apart. It's really unique, and I think it makes the whole thing look really cool.
Hello everyone, Julio Coolio here. It's no secret that I think Power Rangers SPD is the best season of all time, and this especially applies to the designs. I think there are two factors that make the Delta Squad Megazord / Deca Ranger Robo the perfect example of how to make a primary mecha. Firstly, the combination itself. Every Ranger creates a key component, whether it's an arm, leg, or the chest. The combination of different parts perfectly encapsulates Sentai's teamwork theme. Different parts, or people, coming together as one. This can also be seen with the black and white on the Zords. They create a uniform look, yet the individual colors pop out so you could tell where each Zord is. Then there's the acrobatics. Deca Ranger Robo pulls off a lot of insane flips and rolls. Sure, the CGI looks a bit dated, but it's still impressive seeing a mecha pull off so many stunts. It also has a gun that pops from its leg like RoboCop. That, my friends, is what makes Deca Ranger Robo so special. I'm especially excited to say that after many years, I finally have the deluxe toy in my possession. Thanks again for having me on, Thomas. Enjoy the rest of the video, guys. Stay cool, coolio. Okay, you guys knew I ripped that off from Dido Fury.
In 25th place is the classic Mighty Morphin Megazord, Dino Megazord, Daijujin for this video because it's Sentai. I love the little details on this robot, such as the hydraulics and panels that the legs have that make it feel like this super full piece of technology connected to the upper body. Speaking of the upper body, that is more simplistic in its design, but it has some great details on the arms and the chest with the little jagged line things. I guess like the suits. I also enjoy the simplicity of the helmet with just a panel mouth plate and big ol' horns. I think it looks cool, and it's also red and black, and I like that. There's also just the big ol' M's on the shoulder. Whether or not they were intentional in the Sentai design is unknown. I don't know. There's not nostalgia here because, like, I didn't grow up with Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. I just think this is a genuinely cool design, and maybe there's a bit of bias because it's the Power Rangers Megazord, but not a lot of bias, okay? I promise. The Flash King robot Megazord looks like a big bulky boxer, and I think it's awesome. The proportions don't really feel all that wonky, but they're still different enough that like this mecha has like a hyper muscular design. He looks like he lifts, and I think that's kind of funny. The big yellow V on the chest plate really stands out from the rest of the suit, and he also has like what appears to be a big metal mustache, which is kind of weird, but like it kind of ties into like the wrestling vibe I get from like the whole design. So it's a plus for me in my book. It's a really cool design. In 23rd is Zenkaiger. Now, at the time of this recording, Zenkaiger only exists as 2 separate robots, which is a pretty interesting idea. I like it. I think the half and half designs are really cool, especially since there are elements of the individual robots incorporated into those halves besides just the colors. The helmets have this stylized crest thing based on the alternate modes, and the chests have a big old symbol for it, and each half just really has a nice personality, I guess, on its own, and when you combine them, they get even cooler. Between the 2 base combos, I prefer Jura Gaon. I think the colors are just a lot cooler, and it feels a bit more unified and symmetrical because there are a lot more shared parts. Rumajin is really great as well. I love the big dragon wings, but it just feels a bit wonkier since there are many more differences between the halves. And the mix and match gimmick you can do with the halves is really cool and unique. These are basically just both Zenkaiger. It's like 2 Zenkaiger, but 1 Zenkaiger. It's an interesting idea, and I like it. I would be remiss to not mention that my opinion on this overall mecha is slightly improved by the fact that one of the halves is Sentai Waifu Majin. Hi Majin. Jet Icarus. I don't know who came up with that name. That's super cool. It kind of adds to like this royal aspect in the design, and I think it's really cool. The standout part of this Megazord is like a big giant gold wing design that carries over into the shoulders, and it's really distinct compared to other things. I like that the tail is also disconnected slightly, so it sits farther down. The rest of the suit is okay. There's nothing really amazing, but my favorite part of this whole thing is the awesome chest piece. It's awesome. I don't know what else to say. Go Buster O is a chunky boy, and that's my favorite part of this design. This robot really feels big and heavy, and it's a really cool touch, especially with the technological nature of the robot, and it adds to its realism. The incorporation of the different Zord components is also a great choice in my opinion that, once again, adds to the interesting realism of it. I like that it uses the red Zord as a core, and then the other robots create the armor on it, and it really ties everything together, and I like how it all ties into the helmet with these cute little rabbit ears and a gorilla grill, and then the red like racer design.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? Big thanks to Thomas for having me on. My name is John from Pronghorn Heroes, and my favorite primary mecha has got to be Sen Pujin from Hurricaneger. I love the 3 mechs separately, but once they combine, oh my gosh, is it so cool. The second, sleeker, more agile form, and that compartment in the chest that had all those different orbs for all the different weapons throughout the season. The idea of having a compartment for the weapons like that was just another factor that made this one stand out to me. I also love the sword finisher in this one. Having 2 other hologram versions beside it for a final attack is amazing. So when choosing a Robo for this list, I took all that into consideration, along with the fact that it's the one mecha I long to own the deluxe version of one day. Because as far as primary Robos go, this one is a must for our collection. And I think that says something.
Bringing us into the top 20 is Daiboken. Now, this is a rare case where I think a lot of detail is what actually drags down the Megazord design. Now, don't get me wrong, I love the detail on this thing. It's absolutely fantastic, and it makes it a unique entry in this series of Robos. I just think, I don't know, there's a bit too much in some areas. Like, the chest has some weird coloration, and then the head is even weirder with this base head design, which is fine, but then it has this massive, confusing hat. I'm not sure what they're going for with that whole design. design because it's like big and ridiculous in a bad way, but then there's all this detail on it and you can't take your eyes off of it in a bad way. I think that the design of the Megazord is pretty cool, but it's like too detailed in the bad parts of it, and it kind of just makes it look a little weird. I've said in the past that Kyuranger has some of my favorite Megazords. I love the idea of being able to switch these individual limbs to create tons of unique Megazord combos, but what I'm actually looking at today is, of course, Q-Reno, none of the other gimmick parts, but I still like Q-Reno. All the Q-Tama orbs are an interesting idea. When they're metallic, they have a nice burst of color. When you can see the Rangers piloting in them, there's this really cool addition of realism, and it changes the norm of mecha piloting. And I also really love how different the limbs are from each other. Blue and black are very mechanical and are really just silver more than individual colors, and the arms are more made up of their color schemes, but I still think they flow together very nicely, especially since we have such a big core component, which of course makes the head, which is a wonderful like all red head crest, which is really simplistic overall, but it still has some cool details. There are just a lot of nice simplistic designs going on here, so it still has great detailing. It makes this mecha feel extremely unique and pretty awesome. Here's another one that I think gets way too much hate. Juo King is really cool. I really love Juo King. It leans so hard into the cube design that like it feels like such a fully realized idea. Like there's nothing here that feels like, well, we could do cubes, but we couldn't. No, they went all the way with cubes, and I think it works. It feels like an updated design for some of the Showa Megazords I've gone over with their blocking nature, but because the blocking nature is part of like the details of this robot, it works really cool. I also like how well it integrates the individual parts as one Megazord. There are some parts of the individual robots that bleed over into the other limbs, and it dramatically assists in tying everything together. Really, at the end of the day, this is a really simple Megazord, which some may see as a bad thing, but I see it as a good thing, and I really like it. Shinken-O's samurai-inspired design is a great representation of how to make use of a full, unified design with all the individual Zords. I love how despite all of them having these weird different colors and shapes, they all use their main color, a silver rim, and a black background with their symbol. So it makes this full combination feel very connected. I love the helmet and shield of this design, also incorporating all the shapes of the individual Zords, and it really just focuses on that black and gold color scheme, so it ties everything together. I think this is just a very solid design, and it just looks really cool. This is why it's at 45. I forgot Brave T Rhino King. It was on this list. That's great. Okay. I can see the argument that this is not really a Sentai mecha, but I think Dino Force Brave was adapted into Japan as Kyoryuger Brave. So Brave Tyranno King, Brave Kyoryujin, whatever you want to call him, he's being included on this list. I really like how this Megazord takes the original Kyoryujin design and makes these small additions to it, and also just gives it a full color redesign, so it feels like one large robot instead of a bunch of individual robots. I feel like a broken record at this point. I think I've said that many times. The red, white, and black look so good on this thing. I really love that color scheme, and to top it all off with a minigun on both heads is amazing. It really helps to give this guy a unique personality distinct from its original design that it's recoloring. I just kind of wish the black Zord had a different color, because making the base color black blends too well with the colors on the base body, and it makes the blue stand out too much for what should be the base Megazord. If the black Zord was maybe just a different color, or you swapped it out with a different Zord for this base formation, I think it would flow a lot better. Alright, that was part 2 of my ranking of all the primary mechas, robots, Megazords. I hope you enjoyed this part, and be sure to stay tuned for the next and final part of the mini-series to hear the rest of my ranking. Be sure to hit that subscribe button to stay tuned for those videos, and I hope to see you next time.